My name is Linda Lovisa. Welcome to my channel. And today we are going to be learning about trees. I take a lot of photographs, and this is a photograph that I took recently. And it's of a nice sized tree here. Actually, it's hard to tell how big this tree really was. But how do you make something like this more interesting in a painting? My photographs are not like award-winning photographs, but let me show you how you can express yourself with color, and you can use any image and make it an appealing painting for yourself or for someone you know. So let's get started. So now what I've done is I've given my canvas tonal wash, and I've spoken about the tonal wash before. I also did a sketch ahead of time. Now, because this is in pencil and it's hard to see what I was looking for when I was doing my sketch, but usually what I do is I'm looking for little things that I can minimize or where the light source is coming from. So this is just kind of a warm-up to the painting. You don't have to do a sketch ahead of time, but sometimes it's really good to help you so that when you go to your painting, you know exactly what you're going to do and how you're going to bring out what it is that you want to show in your work. Now, recently, I have done a number of little videos on compliments. And I did have someone in my audience who was asking, how many compliments are there? Well, there's the red and green, yellow and violet, and the blue and orange. And why is it necessary to know that? Well, for one thing, when you mix two complements together, you're either going to get really beautiful grays or really gorgeous dark colors, so that it's not necessary to have black on your palette. With this painting today, I am going to show you how the complements work together in a landscape. Now, let's get started. And I'm also going to time my video. So I'm going to give myself 20 minutes here, and let's see how this evolves in 20 minutes. And now I've got it started. So here we go. Number one, let's establish where that tree is positioned within the landscape. And it is about right here. Now this tree was actually quite large. If I was to put my arms around it, I would not reach the other side. And what I really liked about this tree was how dark the bark was. The ponderosa pine is unique because it has a lot of markings within, and I was just fascinated by how dark the bark was in this particular tree. And on this day, I was out in Summerland, BC. So let's get the tree laid in right away. Now I'm picking up the ultramarine blue and the red deep. And you're probably thinking, why on earth would you pick up ultramarine blue and red deep? And you can see right away that I am going to get the most beautiful dark colors right away. And here we go. Let's get that in there. And I'm just going to hit this edge here just because I always tend to miss the edge. And then my framer lets me know. There we go. And of course Orca is supervising all the activity around here. That's my dog. And she's the studio dog. Now I've got that beautiful dark color laid in there. Now while I've got that color on my brush, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of bring it in over here and bring in a bit of a shadow color there. And our light is coming from this direction right here. I'm just going to do this just to give you an idea. And now I'm going to pick up the red light, cadmium red light, and I'm going to start to bring in some of the lighter colors in the bark of the tree. Now notice how, as I'm bringing in the lighter colors in the bark and the tree, the markings are starting to appear. I have laid in that ultramarine blue with the red deep, and I'm just going to bring in that cadmium red light and just begin to bring in some of those markings. Now this is at the very, very beginning. Now it's not as light as what my reference shows, and I will get to that a little bit later. Now I've got the red light and the ultramarine blue and the red deep on this brush, and now I'm going to just bring some of that color here, that rusty color here, pick up some of the yellow deep, Acrylic yellow deep, by the way, and I'm also going to pick up cobalt blue on the same brush. Now this brush does have some red on it, and I'm just going to drop this color in here. Now there's some trees that are in a shadow area here behind this beautiful big tree. So I'm just bringing that color in, and I like that mossy green color that's happening there. And now this area here is lighter, and we've got a nice bright area of light here as well. I'm just going to bring in some of that Acrylic yellow with the ultramarine blue over here. I'm going to bring it right up to the top and bring that down. A little bit more of the ultramarine blue, like so. And I'm going to bring that here too. And bring that down. Now I'm just going to load up another brush. So this brush, I'm going to load up with the yellow medium. So here I am picking up the yellow medium and the ultramarine blue. I'm just going to pick it up on the other side, so it's double loaded. See how we did that? And I'm going to start with the yellow and just do a swath of yellow here, flip my brush, and then add the blue. You're going to get a beautiful, beautiful green. And bring that color, a little bit more of the yellow medium. And let's bring that color over. So this is the hillside here, and it kind of drops down like so. More color. Now this is the blocking in stage. You're not looking at detail, you're looking at getting a feeling of the scene by blocking in color. And let's bring that over here. And over here I have more of a rusty red color from the pine needles. So I'm switching brushes, and I'm going to pick up the red light with the ultramarine blue, just a touch of the blue this time, and deposit here. Now here's where that red and green contrast is the complements at work. When you've got the red and the green working together, giving that beautiful contrast. There we go. And I'm going to bring a little bit of that lighter yellow in here. So now I'm switching brushes again, and I'm picking up the yellow light this time, cadmium yellow light, and I'm depositing it right here, and I'm using a vertical stroke, just getting that laid in like so. and a little bit more, and over here as well. And bring that down. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to this brush here, and I'm going to add the red deep with the yellow medium, and it's going to give me a little bit different orange. You can see that it's a beautiful, it's a little bit cooler than with the red light. And bring that down a little bit in here too. Now let's ground that tree. Let's bring some yellow over here. So ultramarine blue with the yellow medium in the foreground here. And let's bring a bit more of that yellow medium. A little more. Now I'm not making it solid because there's a whole bunch of really nice, fresh, bright leaves going in front of this tree when the time is right. So basically I'm just blocking in color. And I'm just going to switch to this side here, and there we go, get that blocked in here. So I picked up more of the ultramarine blue, and it's giving me a deeper earth tone. There we go. So notice how I'm using my brush, swishing it around, and it's giving me some texture. Now let's get back to this area here. So I'm picking up more of the red light and yellow medium this time because I want to lighten this area up, certain parts of it, where that rusty color of the bark, the pine needles, and probably some debris on the forest floor as well. Now I have a wider swath here, so let me fix that. Ultramarine blue with the yellow or light deep, and I'm going right into that beautiful orangey red. And let's bring that down a little. Just by using the ultramarine blue, I can go into this safely, by the way, and make that adjustment. Now let's get this background in here. So before I go back to the tree, I want to get those areas blocked in. I'm picking up some of the blue and white, so that's the cerulean blue with the white, so that I can block in some of those little sky openings before I go any further. There we go. And I can also do some negative painting later on into those other areas, and that is something I can probably bring up in a future class. Negative painting, a lot of people have a difficult time understanding how that works, and so keep a watch out for that one. Now I'm picking up ultramarine blue, and I've got a beautiful dark green happening back there. And then you can see the light coming through the forest starting to appear. There we go, bring that down. I'm going to pull that up into the sky, but not quite yet. I'm going to pick up some of the yellow deep, and I've got a beautiful tree here coming up, and behind this tree here, it's just a very young tree. And let's bring in some more color here. So one of the things that you have to remember when you're using acrylic paint is you need to use a lot of paint on your surface. If you're using a lot of paint on your surface, it allows you to go back into certain areas and mix and move that paint around. And that is one of the biggest complaints that I hear all the time oh, my paint dries out so quickly and I can't do the blending I want to do. One of the reasons is you're probably not using enough paint. And that is the main reason I find with my students, that they're not using enough paint. So if you're using enough paint, you can move the color around. And it seems a bit frightening at first, and I get it. But the more you do it, you build confidence, and you understand that you can't really do anything wrong in acrylics. You just have to just kind of experiment and explore with it. And that's the joy of painting, as far as I'm concerned, is all that exploring that happens. There we go. Let's bring this in. So earlier when I mentioned how the complements work, and here's a good example with the red and the green. Now it's not like cherry red with the green. Like in this scene, we've got reddish browns, and then we've got a variety of greens here, olive greens, brighter greens, darker greens, and they play with each other in a scene like this. Now I'm going to add a bit more yellow over here. So I'm going to just add a little bit more of that yellow. There we go. Bring that those splashes of light happening on the forest floor. Over here as well, cutting into that area a little bit of negative painting. This is more of a shadow area, so I'm just going to pick up a little bit more of that ultramarine blue and the red deep, and I'm just going to cut in a bit of a shadow there. See how easy that was? Same brush, didn't have to rinse it off. So basically what happens is you end up with an earth tone brush, and you end up with, you know, a brush with greens, a brush with blues. As you can see, I've got 3 brushes happening at the moment, and that's pretty typical when I'm working. And you know, it also helps with your focus when you don't have to continuously rinse brushes and then go back to your painting. You can enjoy the painting process even that much more. Now, because there is white here, and it is wet still, of course, it's giving me a softer green back there, which is great because it pushes back those trees. Now, if I was to go and pick up more of those greens that I'm looking for, the darker greens, I'm not going to get those beautiful dark greens. So this brush I would not discard, but set it aside and use it only for that. Because it has picked up some of the tints, it will always deposit a tint. Even if it's the smallest amount of white, it will always deposit a tint. And you can see that right now, how it is. It's pretty lightly represented there, but it's quite soft, and it is a tint because it has picked up some of the blue from the sky up here, which is just fine. There we go. You just have to know when to use it and when to bring it in. Now, if I want to get back into those really nice dark greens, then I have to rinse my brush. Or sometimes what I'll do, if I have quite a bit of white on here, is I'll just give it a couple of swipes on my palette, or not on my palette, but on my cloth, and then it removes the white that's on the end, and then you can get back into it. Now, I've kind of established the background a bit. I'm just going to pick up, actually I'm just going to give that a wipe first, pick up more of the yellow and the blue. And as you can see that, I didn't do the pickup in the order that I picked up. It was blue and then yellow, but in this case it doesn't matter too much. Now, let's bring that in. So we're at the starting to get the feel of that tree in the forest. I'm just going to set this brush aside. So what I do when I know I'm not going to be using a brush for a few minutes, I just give it a dip in my water bucket and set it aside. And it's not going to dry out on me. And I'm just going to add a little bit more white up here. Just in little areas. So this is white and blue, by the way. And just drop that color in there. And I will revisit these areas later, because remember, this is just the beginning. That's a block in. But when you do your block in, you should be able to stand back and have a really good sense of the direction that you're going in. Now let's make the bark on that tree stand out a little bit more, because it is our focal point, and it is the focal point in my painting as well. So now what I've done is, this area is no longer really wet, so that's okay, and that's why I kind of worked the background first, so that I can go back into it and start to bring in some of the colors of the bark. So I'm using the yellow medium and the red light, and I'm going to just start bringing in the bark. Now I could interpret it in exactly the colors that I see, but that's not who I am as an artist, and everyone has their own signature, I guess you could say, in how they want to represent things in their artwork. I'm just going to lighten up this edge here. So I'm using, just by turning my brush, I can find the yellow on my brush and bring that color down a little bit more. And then start to bring in more of the texture of the bark. And I'm just going to hit my little alarm here because it's going to go off on me. And there we go. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of the ultramarine blue on my brush, and I'm just going to cut in a little bit here and there. So this is sort of when you're starting to get into more of the detail, where you're, you know, starting to bring shapes out in your subject, no matter what it is. Once your block in is done, then you start to work on the details. And see how I'm changing the angle of some of those strokes as they change in the reference material. And they're varied. And I'm going to try and just bring in, whoops, that's a little bit greenish. So I'm picking up a little bit more of the red with it. And the ponderosa pine bark is just so pretty. Now I could go into some real pinks and violets with this image as well, if I so choose to go into those tones. Then it would be like the pinky purples with yellow highlights, but I'm choosing the red-green combination, and it's one of my favorite combinations. And you're probably thinking, okay, well that's really orangey looking, but it still pulls towards the reds. I'm going to bring in a little bit of that red deep in here. And as this painting evolves, a lot more detail will be brought into the tree. And you can see how we're starting to get some depth in that forest. I'm just going to give it a couple more strokes here, picking up some of the cerulean blue, introducing a cerulean blue in the background, like so. Now this is relatively dry, so it's just going to just kind of float on top of what's already been deposited. And that's where I'm going to leave it for today. If you would like to know more about my classes, you can check out my website, lindalovisa.artcanada.ca. And the paints that I was using today are by TriArt. I really love their range of color. And I hope you'll join me again soon. Have a great day.